Alrighty. Firstly, I'll begin with some context to everything listed below. I'll have three recordings for you to do the recap, the villain intro, and then the villain's final word before we head into the actual final phase of the fight. This is a one-off recording, so don't fault me if I fuck up a couple words here and there. The Magician was initially selected to become one of the chosen six by Bolas in the initial planet's creation. However, the magician's brother, who would come to be known as Zuth, actually looked and took that spot through a divine miracle of foolery with the aid of Cassia. Fast forward some years, and now the magician watches his brother, along with the other chosen, become punished or banished by Bolas for what they had become and done. This does eventually lead to the death of his brother Azuf. See, the magician was still divinely touched, though, and where his brother Azuth was a wizard, the magician will grow to become the most powerful divine sorcerer. He laid in wait with much hate for the original creator Bolas. But then, Bolas died. In the time between, the magician had gained a patron in the magician's judge, a paladin who sought to find the one true wish infused with the quark truth of Koratosh. Before the magician obtained that wish through his paladin, a group of zealots that sailed the Ambari, along with the help of many others, resurrected the original creator for aid in the defeat of the Queen of Nightmares. This put a lot of those zealots on the magician's radar, and although he had been sealed away in a timeless vault within the mountain of the Isle of Smith, a cleric of nature and a wizard prince would one day come to release him on what we assume is some sort of accident. Moving forward, the magician did obtain his true wish, and when attempting to become the most powerful entity in the universe, he knew that it would cost the soul of a god's son. Artagon, the traveler's son, would become that sacrifice. And with the power, the magician destroyed all that Bolas had ever created, smashing the 20 planes and creating this crumbled pit at the lowest point of the new world's creation. This pit held all of the old world's devils, demons, monsters, and heroes. It held the Traveler, it held Vecna, Sarenrae, Marzana, Finnan, Ivern, and Nezrim Keith, and many more, including the original creator themselves, Bolas. These heroes began to plot and hid themselves well among all the chaos and death of these collapsed worlds. However, the Traveler had lost a lot, and with the corrupting eye and the doom-seeing foresight, he knew that this would only ever lead to more death and chaos if they continued. The Traveler betrayed all the other heroes, informed the magician of the plotting and the location of these heroes. And to make an example, the magician arrived, then continued in pulling apart Bolas in strands for all of them to see, with the Traveler by his side from then on. Everyone in the pit would remain there, with a few exceptions. The magician held these Hunger Games styled competitions for a select few to escape and become rulers of the new worlds that he had begun to create. These rulers would include the Teller of Tales, a ruler of the surface before that plane would collapse to give way to the planets as the new rulers were officiated. Jack Valentine, the ruler of the Westlands, the Traveler, the ruler of the Fae, Finnan, the ruler of Ambari and protector of Shakana City, along with many devils and demons to control hell and the underworld. Now, here comes the issue in the Magician's remaking. The Teller of Tales was just a boy when he came to rule. He was alone, and how he even came to power was simply from the wish of a shooting star. The Teller, through his grimoire, had the power to set in motion the events of the world's creation, and when the current party's ship came to crash land in the surface plane, the NPCs that lived there thought of them as fallen stars, and the teller's affinity for the stars left him to write into scripture that these 5 who crash landed were the only ones who would be able to alter the shape of these new worlds until it was fully created and complete. This led to any devils, demons, or just in general antagonists that stood in their way to fail regardless of the odds that were against them. Then, the magician would be defeated, or at least erased from the material reality before the completion of all of the worlds and rulers, meaning that these 5 individuals named the Material Menasai would continue their undefeatable reign in power and adventure. Through the magician's allies, he learned of his oncoming removal from reality and set in place a ritual of remaking that took fractured pieces of not only his soul, but the souls of the heroes that had died in the pit below. These souls were stored into 15 fragments that were scattered across all of creation and held by the magician's most devout allies. The Material Menasai were then recruited by 3 powerful individuals, and these 3 held alignment balance. There was the ruler of the dead, lawful evil, Aelor, the dream goddess of chaotic good, Marzana, and then the true neutral, Teller of Tales. The Material Menasai then began on a quest to defeat and obtain all of these fragments before the evil holders could reunite and use them in the ritual of remaking to bring back the magician. Once the party had attained the majority, that would be 8 out of 15, it was revealed that the teller had been killed before this quest ever had begun. And using an artifact known as the Crown of Lies, the Traveler was disguised as a do-gooder and would watch and perfect how best to attain these fragments from the party at a later date. From there, the Traveler already had 7 of the 15, so with the other 8, he would have what was needed to bring the magician back. And using some time travel bullshit, he began the ritual himself and remade the magician. Now, where does Agnesai Ignace come into play? Well, in hope of his return, the Material Menasai stored his body encapsulated in ice on the station in space with Lucor, Caduceus, Gilmore, plenty other people. And when Lucor received the signal, he did bring the station into orbit of the New Worlds and saw a big sign for a casino named the Red Belvedere. He, of course, landed there, and while he was gambling, lost track of time, is so the curse of the Red Belvedere. And in that time, the magician, this is moments before the magician is going to come to be removed from reality, the magician, the traveler, and Asmodeus, the most powerful devil in all of hell, wielder of Tzeentch's power from the abyss, have snuck up onto the station and did all kinds of contingency, magic, trap, shit, but also took that frozen cube with the knowledge that it would be required to stand against the material Menasai. For what defeats Menasai but another Menasai? Then later, the station blew up, killing everybody on board, and Lukor's body was never found. Again, once the traveler revealed himself, wielding that crown of lies, the location of Marzana and Aelor of the original three, well, their location was also unknown. So, now, over half of the magician's allies have been defeated. The most powerful ones certainly have. But the magician is remade, and he occupies the body of Agnesai Ignace, a material Menasai, which leads our party to see him for the first time before he vanishes to an unknown location. But the material Menasai will find him very soon.